I'm walking up to a local brewery. I'm about to go in for something called astronomy on tap. Wafts of hops and fermenting grain. Nice. Now you'd be forgiven for thinking this is just an excuse to drink, but it's actually a rotating lecture series put on by the University of Wisconsin. And an excuse to drink. Stimulate the mind while beer dulls the rest. Very yin-yang. I dig it. Tonight, a couple of brilliant minds are going to illuminate my ignorance with an elemental tour of the universe on how black holes shape their host galaxies. People lining up for a beer and a chance to hear about the ultimate unknowns of the cosmos. Talk about mysteries. Can't help but see some parallels. We're all just looking for answers in the dark. Now, I used to think that should have been me behind the lectern. I attended Space Academy at NASA's Kennedy Space Center a lifetime ago. And for a spell, I thought the stars were going to be my day job. Watching astronomers hold a room, like I'm sure they will tonight, does make me feel that old draw. Maybe jealousy, maybe just the ache of a road I didn't drive. And for me, back on the water in 2013, the dark mystery wasn't just in the water, it was in the very sky above us. Unquiet Realities. Episode 3, Curvature of Reality. We'd been chasing shadows on these waters for more than a decade. Legends, maps, nameless boats, all building towards this. 3 days adrift on Lake Pepin, Minnesota's very own Loch Ness. Not a 3-hour tour, those don't end well, but breakfast, lunch, dinner, and vulnerable sleep all on the water. Total immersion. August in this area is many things. It holds a flirty relationship with autumn. Many days leave no mistaking it summer, with the fair chance for blazing temperatures and plenty of sun. As the month progresses, however, you get that undeniable and mostly intangible waft of fall. I often find it in the lengthening of shadows whispering to me, embedding thoughts in my mind that harken Halloween on the horizon. This dance, perhaps it is truly the angle of the sun and how the shadows are cast just long enough to lure my consciousness away from the daily stress for the first time in the season. And I do so love this season. After a day steering baby down the back roads, Keel and I were in the boat, outfitting it with countless video cameras and a littering of investigation equipment specific to our task. Keel, my partner in crime, is a restless spirit who will do anything for a good story. We've worked innumerable cases together. One particular cool one, we hiked through 3-foot snowdrifts, crossed a frozen lake in negative 36 temps just to camp on an island in the dead of winter. Why? It was the reported lair of the flesh-craving Wendigo, of course. And yes, we both risked literal life and limb in those temperatures. Sure, we both were hours from any sort of rescue, but he's the one who's been immortalized as the expert portrayed by name in an actual video game. I'm not jealous, though. Like, I am jealous. I mean, come on, a video game. That's super cool to my inner 10-year-old self. But the Wendigo case is for another time. Back on Lake Pepin, the memories of frigid snowdrifts and Wendigo Con, that's what the elders called them, the plural, reminded us preparation pays. We each brought a few new tools to this expedition, and we were energized by the chance to finally use them. I had an underwater dive camera rig that I had spent the last at least 2 months designing and building. Keel had invested in some underwater sonar equipment. We were ready. The Challenger rolled me into the marina just as the clouds parted. Baby's not out of the war, but this battle, she'd guard our six from the shore. Our dusty steed for this fight, a 1970s 40-something foot houseboat trimmed in a sun-bleached blue. Not shiny, far from perfect. Made me all the more enchanted with her. She was gritty and gave nothing but atmosphere. Over a few beers, we stowed our gear, installed countless video cameras, set up tripods, and spread binoculars and telephoto zoom cameras throughout the boat. One always within reach. First night aboard. Takes me back to the oldest written sighting we've come across and what they bravely traversed the monster-filled waters on. August 1867. A party of raftsmen from St. Louis who encountered some unknown aquatic beast while passing down Lake Pepin. Scant on details for that sighting, but felt good to be on the water again. Beers and a stiff bunk made for a short nap of a night's sleep. Wheel in the sky keeps on turning. But the real energy came with morning. That anticipatory current before a hazard-laden adventure. If fate exists, we were in her hands. Today our heading was north for about 25 miles. The Mississippi River has a booming commercial lane. And as a result, we were left smashing through 5-foot wakes created by the larger vessels. Cupboards flew open. The TV was on one of those articulating arms. No way to easily secure it. And as a result, it bashed itself against the wall for days. Complicated. Of course, I hate to see something get needlessly damaged, but I'm also sure there was some enjoyment, a bit too much, with my love-hate relationship in the television industry. I myself was literally tossed against the walls. Perhaps karma. Though I somehow managed to not spill my coffee this time. Victory. Caffeine sadly keeps my world spinning more than I'd easily admit. Then there were the natural shallows and human-made wing dams that lurked invisibly just beneath the surface of the water, waiting to tear our hull up, sending our brave new steed down to the bottom. Anything could happen, and frankly, that was part of the draw. Hours of nonstop navigation brought us finally to the mouth of Lake Pepin. Keel muttered, "Looks a lot like Loch Ness. You know, I've been there twice before. No big deal." I quickly yelled over the drone of the motor, "Point," followed immediately by minus a point for self-praise. We were, as usual, rushing to keep our schedule. Keel had set up maybe 8 interviews with folks who had lived their entire lives around the monster-filled waters of Lake Pepin. Weeks of setup, hours of interviews, and what we got was sunsets and sailboats. A lakeside town's version of puppies and rainbows. The town's pillars, who had kindly made time for us, had no time for lake monsters. I needed a reset and a drink. Really, we just needed to refuel and talk over tactics moving forward. The landscape hadn't changed, but the last few hours were far from invigorating. Besides, every lake town's got its own LaGrange, neon buzzing, gossip frying on the grill. The kind of place you can smell the skepticism right next to the bacon. So we ate, we drank, and chatted up some random locals. Free drinks do taste better, by the way. Knife check victory. Winchester. Folklorists were writing about strange things in Lake Pepin for more than a century. And those stories were already generations old then. Lake monsters, not exclusive to Lake Pepin either. A stone skip from here were a half dozen different lake monsters that were documented in semi-modern times by historian Charles Brown. He was instrumental in setting up and running different facets of the Wisconsin State Historical Society at the turn of the last century. So that's not a tourist gimmick. That's lineage. Now, of course, a paper trail isn't proof, but I do love historical data. It's a foothold in a world of fog. You know, I've got his list from the 1940s pamphlet. Let me just recap from my hunter's journal here real quick. I've got it here. On Lake Mendota, there are stories of Bojo, a massive serpent-like being said to stretch nearly 20 feet and often associated with the broader Winnebago lineage found in the indigenous Great Lakes traditions. There's Rock Lake, has a monster with a most sickening odor, according to witnesses, and huge jaws to match, called Rocky by locals. Even inspired a fantastic beer I go out of my way to enjoy every time I'm in the area. Lakeside, of course. Beer in one hand, binoculars in the other. My kind of work day. What else is there? At Lake Ripley, where numerous locals in 1891 estimated the undulating form of a giant snake monster 50 feet long. And lastly, yes, just upstream of Lake Pepin on the old Mississippi River lies Red Cedar Lake. Now, interestingly enough, this is connected via a natural system of waterways to Lake Pepin. Charles documented an initial lake monster sighting there from 1891 where a fisherman caught sight of a large undulating form like that of a monstrous snake. The men watched on, though the head reportedly never broke the water's surface. They watched as it disappeared from view in the distance. Now, after a few hours on land, washing down the bad news with a good beer, we steamed back out into Lake Pepin. Along the way, we plotted every documented monster sighting. Keel read aloud from our stack of notes while I marked each location on the map. Soon, the lake map was dotted with adhesive flags, each story pinned like a heartbeat on the surface of our investigation. Charting it in this way gave us more than just a visual. Clusters emerged, patterns appeared, hotspots kind of revealed themselves. Comparing reports against the terrain, we could plan where to test, whether the story fit the place or if the place explained the story. But first, misadventure. The broken sonar rig demanded a complete overhaul. The current continually tried to maniacally thrash me into, under, or away from the boat while I disassembled the sonar from below the waterline. I was grateful I had remembered my dive fins. The pull in the water that day was more notable than I had ever experienced previously on the Mississippi. As my hands mechanically removed the rig from our vessel, a monster report from 2009 popped into my mind. I noticed that my thoughts were wandering from the task literally at hand, and being mindful of one's thoughts in situations like this, well, that can mean literal life or death. Which then took my mind back to being 100 feet underground, at least a decade earlier, inside Halloween Cave. 3 stories deep here now. I was perhaps 20 feet down a lateral chute no wider than my shoulders. As I slid an inch at a time on my stomach, I could still feel the top of the cave on my back. Why? Also that I could get video for a project I was shooting at the time. See, the drop at the end had never been measured, so the bottom had never been seen. I reached the end of the chute, got the video, and right then, into my mind pops earthquake. This would just be the worst time for me for an earthquake. I would be completely done. I had to reset that thought quickly. Not the place to lose one's mind. I still had 20 feet to slither out backwards, one toe pull at a time. Back to the water. One hand holds onto the boat, and one hand takes apart the underwater rigging we secured a day prior. The 2009 report, still present in my mind as its description of a 35-foot mysterious return caught on sonar. That team in 2009 had a scuba diver ready, who returned to the surface reportedly pale and terrified. You see, at the bottom, the diver described a strange sensation sweeping over his body, followed by an unexplained ringing in his ears. Wild. Then he saw a massive black shape move alongside him. When it changed direction, the resulting vortex nearly trapped him. Those on the surface even reported a sudden, unexplained wave near their boat. Despite being an experienced scuba diver, he never dove in Lake Pepin again. Now, It's one thing to let your imagination run wild while watching a scary movie from the safety of your sofa. It's another to let it rule you while 20 feet down a lateral cave chute or under a boat on the Mississippi River. Meanwhile, Keel repaired our sonar rig on deck as I waited, hoping for a similar visit from the lake monster. Finally, I reinstalled the equipment and reluctantly exited the water, limbs intact, like some sort of quitter. I had spent the last 2 months designing and building our underwater camera rig. High-definition footage awaited at the lake bottom, or, just as likely, 8 weeks of work sinking unrecoverable into darkness. It wasn't remote controlled. Instead, a hand crank on the boat controlled about 80 feet of high tensile braided stainless steel cable. And that cable was our lifeline to monstrous footage and our potential nightmare. We attached it to the boat, but it could obviously snag on anything, becoming a sudden and deadly anchor. Now, we planned for a lot of scenarios. However, our only cutting tool on this adventure, Keel's hatchet. Always on his hip, not exactly the right tool for this job, but in a pinch, who needs a wrench when you have Keel's hatchet? I jokingly asked if he slept with that. With a smirk, he quipped, "This isn't a game, Winchester." And for a fact, I know he does. Plus 1 point. We motored to several historical monster sighting locations, dropping the rig into the depths and slowly reeling it back up each time. Every haul brought hope that later viewing would reveal something extraordinary. So far, interesting? Always. Unexplained? Not yet. Time was short, as usual. Plans were long. We covered more lake territory, repeated the drops, and even had Keel enter the water with the rig, hoping to flush something out from hiding. Each dive, each turn of the crank was a mix of anticipation and the quiet dread of what could go wrong. But while we were looking down into the water, something was happening up above. Day had long given way to twilight, and we still needed to find a safe harbor for the night. Sun checked out, moon clocked in. Same gig, different spotlight. The upper deck of our houseboat became a nocturnal observation station. Binoculars, cameras, night vision, video equipment, everything within arm's reach. In between swigs of beer, cracked my first pumpkin beer of the year that night, if memory serves, and barely a better place to do so. We kept vigil in between beer and scattered banter over dimly moonlit water. We half joked, wouldn't it be great if we heard a huge splash followed by swimming noises headed right for us? The perfect scenario for monster hunters. But as the stars emerged, our conversations drifted into exoplanets, cosmic mysteries, and the big unknown. UFO sightings have a curious way of pulling local legend out of folklore and into the modern world. Reports from a pair of skeptical laborers had already placed something extraordinary above Lake Pepin. Bright lights moving faster than planes, they reported. Not just maybe stars or maybe a satellite, but brighter than the rising sun. The pair was working in Pepin when they had their experience. Pepin's a small town on the Wisconsin shoreline, just opposite of where we now float. The first witness was outside their work truck when he saw it. Something so unlike he had ever witnessed, he was dumbfounded into silence. 10 minutes later, he finally asked his partner if he had noticed anything. He was immediately met with a sigh of relief. Yes, I wasn't going to say anything because I don't know what that was and I'm freaking out. It was 7:30 in the morning when they had their enduring experience. But time is irrelevant to mystery. The area itself has a long history of strange phenomena. Scientists estimate a meteor struck near Lake Pepin around 430 million years ago, leaving behind gold, diamonds, and unusual terrain. So yes, on this adventure, we were chasing two horizons, one beneath the water and one above, much above. This region is home to countless sightings, many kinds of close encounters, and general unexplained phenomena. They form a thread that weaves across decades. Some witnesses describe simple, unusual lights in the sky. Others, clearly distinguishable creatures. Classic Bigfoot-like forms not far from the lake, and if we expand our net geographically further, everything from giant glowing jellyfish of light in the sky from around the world, human-sized insectoids piloting UFOs in New Mexico, 4-foot-tall upright frogs in Ohio, even reptilian humanoids abducting Officer Shermer in Nebraska. The connections are undeniable, even if they defy explanation. I've personally interviewed people who have communicated with Bigfoot-looking creatures. Seen them inside UFOs, they said. Talk about beyond categories. Hawking entertained the idea it would not be beyond the realms of possibility that somewhere outside our universe lies another, different universe. Funny thing, back at Cape Canaveral, I wanted the lectern. Somewhere between the river and the sky, I guess I realized perhaps I'm better as a witness? If I'm honest, probably less realized and more fell into where I am. Don't know. I guess we can't take all the roads before us. Just keep choosing until all the choices are used up. No, I didn't end up a scientist at NASA. Besides, who wants money and respect anyway? Me? Well, I ended up listening for whatever refuses to fit. And maybe that's enough. For the truck drivers, their sighting was just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Not a direct encounter, not a change in their chemistry, but a hint of something bigger. To see the full picture, you have to look just a bit east. Every story overlaps, like radio signals. Change of frequency, but the static's still the same. The static. And that's for another story. The small town of Elmwood, Wisconsin is a rabbit hole of UFO events that spans many decades. To be clear, I'm compelled by a lifetime of experiences to give as much breadth and paint the widest scope here. Not for myself, mind you, but for those brave enough to share with me their experiences of what are often the most fundamentally disturbing events. No amount of talent could describe the events that have occurred in any realistic vein because they deal with alternative realities that we have yet to fully comprehend. And when presented in the wrong way, in the wrong context, the people involved can look foolish, if not downright psychotic. That being said, out of the many sightings in this area, the most famous involves George Wheeler. A sighting in 1975 was only the beginning. Officer Wheeler, a combat flyer from World War II and a New York highway patrolman, was on rounds one ordinary evening, this time wearing an Elmwood police uniform, when quite suddenly, flashing from the black night sky, drew his attention to a bright ball of flames. He initially thought it was a plane about to crash, but as he gave chase, the object drew closer. The trajectory put it straight for him. Barely time to think, he skidded to the side of the road and braced for impact. Literally jumped from his patrol car, took cover. There was no plane, no engine, no crash. What first appeared to be a great ball of flames drew into clearer focus, revealing a cigar-shaped object. Finally, as it silently floated over him, the cleanest view made clear a saucer-shaped UFO. It was hovering 1,500 feet above the ground. It made a lurch and took off, leaving him alone, sitting in his patrol car. The dark sky returned. Then everything was normal again. Well, a very new normal. That should have been the end of it. It is for most people. Officer Wheeler readies himself, eager and wanting for another sighting. From that moment forward, he's ready. He thinks he's ready. He always travels with binoculars and a camera. And almost exactly to the day, 1 year later, the sky answers. Again, Officer Wheeler is on patrol at night, Elmwood, Wisconsin. He sees a bright light emanating from Tuttle Hill. What he first suspected to be a fire at the old quarry, he finds to be a large craft, silvery, hovering low above the quarry. Later, he'd estimate the craft at around 250 feet across. 6 bluish-white lights glow along the side, maybe windows, and he thinks he can see shadows moving inside. Underneath the craft are what look like 4 landing legs, and hanging down in the center, a long, dark, hose-like appendage. Officer Wheeler was radioing what he was seeing. Then, a blue flash emanated from the craft. Then nothing. The dispatcher's radio would not raise a response from Officer Wheeler. Alerts went out. And when he was finally found, vehicle in the middle of the road, Our big damn hero, who cautiously approached the confusing scene, found the driver's side door open, Officer Wheeler unconscious and slumped in the driver's seat. He was described as the shade of milk and unresponsive. Eventually, Officer Wheeler regained consciousness, and attempts to move his patrol car were in vain. It had to be towed and was later found the car's points, plugs, and starter had all failed. He publicly only discussed a brilliant blue beam of light shooting from the UFO through his windshield, then nothing. I've got the audio from the last known interview of Officer Wheeler. Intense. Perhaps there was more he could have shared. Wheeler eventually wakes up. He remembers the craft. He remembers the flash. Then, he's done talking. In and out of the hospital for weeks. Doctors never really deciding what exactly was wrong with him. About a year later, Officer Wheeler passes away, reportedly from complications related to that night. His account from that fateful evening was corroborated again by multiple other UFO reports from the area. Not just lights in the nighttime sky, but people reported unusual sounds. TVs malfunctioned. Lights flickered. Normally quiet dogs barked inconsolably. And radio stations turned to static. The hose, well, there's our water connection. Growing up with the rock quarry as one of my classically unsafe playgrounds, I can attest to the frequent ponds and water holding areas that always seem to go along with them. Most ufologists speculate the hose-like appendage witnessed by Wheeler was indeed going into the water. For what rhyme or reason? Anyone's guess. It is a bit of a theme, though. Around the world, witnesses have reported UFOs sucking up water from oceans, lakes, and even swimming pools. Over the years, I've collected numerous UFO accounts from the upper Midwest, not too far from where Lake Pepin pools. UFO sightings that are followed by descriptions of creatures, Bigfoot-like figures, birds 7 feet tall, walking like humans, even human-sized insectoids wearing clothes. That doesn't even include the ice circles and USOs, or unidentified submerged objects. Sometimes the unseen thread is visible, or at least painfully witnessed. Now, I'm not claiming any lake monsters slithered out of a UFO and into Lake Pepin. But around the world, these confounding patterns repeat. And that's the thread I can't help but pull on. Sometimes the thread feels less like a line and more like a bubble. A bubble that could perhaps brush against our reality. Brian Greene said, our universe could be just one bubble in a grand cosmic foam. Black holes might be similar events, or even our own Big Bang. Perhaps there's a softer contact, a way between for something. It's all beyond me, but I can't stop wondering. The wake of whatever traveling between wrote a temporary signature behind, erased before anyone could read them. Only glimpses. Four years later, a family fishing along Lake Pepin had their reality briefly broken. Mr. Stone saw something rise 3 feet from the water, snatch a bird, and slowly sink back below the surface. Coincidentally, his daughter screamed in shock at the same time from something else entirely. As the doting dad rushed to her side, he saw snakes hissing and frantically fleeing the waters of Lake Pepin. Decades later, Keel interviewed him. He recalled the beast that rose from the lake as at least 10 to 12 inches thick, with a flat head, skin gray like an elephant. The cosmic connection wasn't just a few sightings. Hundreds, perhaps more, of close encounters were reported in the region. Not isolated, mind-bending moments, but recurring, layered experiences. Take one in 1979, Marshall County, Minnesota, for example. Sheriff's Deputy Val Johnson was on patrol when he saw a bright light on the highway. He radioed, "I don't know. Something just hit my car." The something, he later reported, it was a light that jumped through his windshield. It struck him, as he described, like a 200-pound pillow. And then, silence. His wristwatch and the cruiser's clock both stopped, later documented for a 14-minute period. Though, he took a full 40 minutes to regain consciousness into his new fresh hell. When he woke, he found many of his teeth reportedly fractured at the gum line, and his eyes burned as if they were hit by an arc welder. Those damn radioactive red eyes. Doubt, for some, curved a little more that night. For a whole new group of unwitting people, they were swallowed without a compass by that static. Ford and Honeywell sent experts to examine the car and were reported in the press at the time they were baffled by the broken headlight, dents, and bent antennas. No one had seen anything like it, but you and I know why. We weren't there to tell them where to look. I often think about what that kind of night does to a civilian. Now, I've personally spoken with countless experiencers, mind you. Men and women whose lives cracked open one night, never to close again. I've stood by men built like linebackers, looking down at my 6'4" frame, shake, sob, tell me they are too afraid to sleep, looking at me for answers. Other experiencers who just drink to buy a few hours of quiet. Other witnesses who sleep on the floor because the bed became the enemy. Tell me that's not trauma. If it happened in a war zone, we'd call it PTSD and send help. We'd have sympathy for a soldier, for a kidnapping survivor, for a hostage. But say it happened under a strange light in the sky, and suddenly the world looks away. Worse, people degrade. The damage doesn't care what you believe. It's still there, and it's heavy. What these people try to describe doesn't fit inside any language we've got. They reach for words and end up sounding broken. Oh, and the crowd loves that. It keeps the world tidy. It's easier to call someone else delusional than to admit your own map might be incomplete. These are lives detonated by mystery, and it breaks my heart on how alone they are. Maybe it's the loneliness. It's what keeps me out here. Long roads away from home, emptying my pockets to lint after spending the week filling them. Still asking the questions. But for what? I suppose to give experiencers a momentary reprieve from insanity. Maybe that has to be enough. So, what do you do with stories like these? How do you apply the scientific method to a 200-pound pillow of light? I'm still not sure. But clearly not the best pillow fight I can imagine. What we found on Lake Pepin wasn't a flesh and blood monster, but yet another journey into the world of what's possible. If something is happening, what's the intent? Seems like nothing altruistic. John A. Keel, yes, the nickname sake of our very own Keel, he used to say, we are to them what cockroaches are to us. Ultra-terrestrials was a label he used. It's been said, why don't aliens just come out and tell us what they want? His point, ever tried explaining yourself to a cockroach? Whatever the experiencers experienced, that feeling of not being able to articulate it breaks people just as surely as proof does. I've seen it. Deep in their eyes, something between giving up and horror. That resignation when memory and reality refuse to align. When their entire belief system fractures. The writers and poets of all history have failed to give appropriate weight to death and war. This ain't any easier. Our understanding too young. Our language too small. Sagan said, the scientific method is a tool, not a religion. And we are limited by our tools, by our understanding, and by what we are capable of observing. A UFO, a lake monster, a ghost, they may lie outside the scope of our instruments. But that wouldn't mean they're any less real. So, carry on. Even when you're half convinced the map's upside down and the instruments aren't making any sense. I guess that's all any of us can do. Keep steering through the noise. Eventually, every adventurer must concede that the dawn of tomorrow's investigation beckons. Sometime early Saturday morning, we slumbered down to the bunks, battened down the hatches, and grabbed a few hours of shut-eye. By the time we were back on deck the next same morning, the sun was just making its way above the horizon, staring at another long day of possibilities. And I do love that view. The sun cast long angles of light through a thick fog bank. The entire eastern shore of the lake was obscured in a menacing haze. It was rolling in fiery orange and reds from the rising early morning. As the sun cut through, the cliffs of the driftless region revealed themselves, maiden rock standing the tallest. Foreshadowing the haunted day ahead, she pierced the fog high above the water. This dance created an almost sentient movement. Or maybe that was just because I knew the tragic history. Until next time, remember, not all roads lead out. Travel both.